In this video, we're going to be covering AI Canvas in DiffusionBee. So if you've seen the previous video where I cover the interface, we're going to go into this a little bit more in depth, but you have a few different options for inpainting, and AI Canvas is essentially that, but on steroids. On the top of the screen here, we have a handful of tools. We can redo a prompt, undo a prompt, save the image that we create externally wherever we want to. We can have a paintbrush where we can actually physically paint on the canvas if we want to, although honestly I don't tend to use this one myself too much. You have an eraser, so if you paint an area of the image or you want to erase a part of the image, you can do that as well. We have a draw inpainting mask, so if there's a specific area in the image we want to create, we can use that, and I'll use that in a second here. You have the option to move the canvas, and yeah, let's dive into this. To the left of the screen, we have our basic layout where we can enter our text prompt. You have the functions where you can choose text to image, image to image, or generative fill. I'm going to be using the text to image initially. And for the model, I'm going to be using the Dream Shaper model, which you can get on civitai AI. And I believe it's also on Hugging Face. The seed number, you can enter your favorite seed numbers if you have some from previous images you made. I'm just going to leave that blank and see what we have. Sampling steps, as always, you can increase this to kind of help increase the overall resolution of your image. I'm going to keep this around 30 for this example. And you have your generate option and the clear the stage, which will get rid of everything we make. You have an advanced option toggle. And with that, we can enter our negative prompt. So I'll be back in 1 second. So in the negative prompt field, I just added a few different prompts for this example. I don't want it to be monochrome, so I'll put that in there. I don't want it to be grayscale, so I added that. I don't want any watermarks or text or signatures or for it to be blurry. So I added that in the negative prompt. Under the diffusion option drop-down menu, we have currently 6 sampler options, but I believe that's going to be increased as time goes on. I'm going to try this with the K_Euler sampler, and the guidance scale, similar to our regular text to image, it's how closely it follows our actual prompt. So the more to the left, you let the DiffusionBee have more creativity, and more to the right, you're following the prompt more literally. So I'm gonna have it somewhere in the middle. Let's try around, I don't know, 14 for this example. So we want it to be more strict when it comes to this prompt, and then I'll try one where it's not. And then, as before, we have our option to have a starting point for our iteration. So you can have a seed number that you want to start from. You can leave it blank if you want to, and then we can also have a slight variation. And again, you can leave that blank as well. Under inpainting options, we can toggle this on and off, and this will make our mask. I'll get to all this in a second, so just hold fast here. This will have it specifically make changes to only the masked area if we have that toggled on. And under our miscellaneous, if you are using a model that was trained in Stable Diffusion 2.0 or requires clip skip, and you'll normally see that information from where you get the models from. So for example, civitai AI, it'll usually have that under the information about it. If it needs these, you would just toggle that on. All right, so with that all being said, let's generate this first image. If you do have lower resolution images, let's say you want to paint over a face. So now we have our alien standing in front of a gas station. If you want to paint just a specific area, similar to how you would in Photoshop, and replace a certain part, I've had more success with changing the function to, instead of text to image, to generative fill. And then by doing so, you can enter your prompt, and then it only will affect that specific area. So what will happen if I don't have it set to that, let's just undo this, and I'll have my alien, and I will paint just around his head because I want just the horns. And if I have it set to text to image, it's going to generate everything within this bounding box. So let's press generate. So this is just about done here, and you'll see how it changes. Even though I have this selected, it'll change everything within this box. So again, it's because of how this is functioning, it's gonna only affect that. So even though I have this toggled on to only update the master region, it kind of circumvents this, even though I have this toggled on, when the function of how this works is set to text to image. So again, everything within this bounding box, it's going to be affected if I have it set to that. And if I have it to set to generative fill and I have it selected, it's only going to affect that masked region, if that makes sense. So to kind of further make this a little bit more clear, I'll redo this again. So again, with my mask, I'm going to paint around its head. And again, I want to kind of include a little bit outside and inside of where I want this to be. So you can kind of make this mask a little larger. You may have to play around with this. And notice as I paint over it a few times, it's kind of layered with the mask, but that doesn't really affect how this looks overall. So don't worry about that. If you want to clear the mask out too, you can just toggle off. By clicking it again, it'll get rid of that mask. So I'm going to paint around the alien's head. And I'm going to generate the horns, make sure this is set to generative fill, and that this is toggled on for, I can actually minimize that. Make sure this is toggled on for the only update mask region, and then press generate. So now it finished up, and you can see it made our new, well, it created a whole new face instead of just the horns. So there's some things there's a few things I hope that come with future updates. Again, I'm not the developer for this. I just like using this app, but it would be really nice to have, similar to other applications, where you can see the layers that are created, maybe on the side here, where I can then use this mask to erase from those specific layers. So we're like blending layers together. But that's just my own personal opinion and my hopes and wishes what will come in the future versions of this app. But again, I'll toggle this back and forth. So this is before, after. So I added the horns. And then the fun thing with this canvas, we'll switch this back into, I'll do two different versions so you can see what's happening here. If I had an image, I can also switch this to image and have that function as well. But we're just going to be working with these two for now. So I'm going to switch this to text to image. And then having this move box option, you see it moves this bounding box. So I can expand this, I can collapse this, I can make this really large. But when you're working with the default for Stable Diffusion, honestly, if you're making this box really large and trying to generate something, the quality may not look as good. So I would recommend trying to generate smaller sections at a time and building it up that way versus trying to do a large area all at once. And the difference, again, here's the move canvas. So this is going to move everything on our canvas, right? So the whole canvas is moving. And the button to the very left, it just moves, as it says, the box. So everything within that bounding box. So I'm going to expand my canvas out a little bit here, and I'm going to just have this prompt: a large, vast, dry desert with cactuses and tumbleweeds in the background. So because I have this bounding box to the side, it's only going to fill what's in this box and leave the original image alone. So again, I'm going to leave my settings how they are and hit generate. And now it will expand our previous canvas. So you can keep doing this to your heart's content. Essentially, you can keep expanding further and further, similar to like the infinite canvas option again in other applications, but this is within DiffusionBee. And if you want, you can generate part of an image with one specific model, and then you can switch it off to some other models. Let's say you have one that works really well with architecture. You can make a building with that one, and you can swap it to another one that's really good with characters, and you can make a character with that one by using the mask and painting that area. Just different ideas you can come up with using that kind of method. So now we have our second image. If I move this box out the way, it kind of extended our canvas, and you'll note that it doesn't quite blend 100% as smooth as it can be. And again, this is where I'm hopeful in the future versions of this app, there'll be more options where we can actually see the layers that are created to the side or something, where we can actually use masks to kind of blend this a little smoother. But for the time being, this is what we have. And there's also external applications where we can do more advanced editing if you don't have access to like Photoshop. There's PhotoP, which is a free online resource web application that's very, very similar to Photoshop. It's meant to look that way, and you can blend it that way if you wanted to. But anyway, with that all being said, let's expand this a little further. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. There we go. So now we have an expanded canvas. And I'm gonna move this box out the way again. We can see we have our desert, 2 different roads here. And let's say I want to get rid of just, I don't know, this section of the canvas on the bottom. I don't like this little road here. I can again use my Inpainting mask tool here. And again, for future versions of this, just my own personal request on top of the little layers on the side. Maybe having the option to adjust the brush size of the mask. Like a little preview of that would be really cool, because right now you can't adjust the brush size in the AI canvas option just yet, but hopefully in the future it will be there. Move this box. Let's say I have this off to the side here. So if I were to generate an image right now, it's going to paint or fill in all this area here, because this is all transparent. You have your image here, and then you have all this little region within the box. That's all transparent. So yeah, that's essentially what happened here. But I'm going to try one more time just to kind of get a different looking cactus. Okay, so it actually did what I wanted to do. It didn't really paint the feet, which is great. So if I undo and redo, undo, redo. So it did a little wonky stuff with this little background desert, but that's okay. I just want you all to kind of get the gist of how this functions. And if you wanted to, you can, clear out this whole canvas by going to the bottom here and pressing clear stage. That gets rid of everything in our canvas. So if you wanted to, you can also save that image that we just made and bring it into a different section of the app, or we can actually import an image if we wanted to. But I want to move on to a different area. So another area I want to cover, and then we'll get back into AI Canvas, is Inpainting. So let's dive into that real fast. So similar to the AI Canvas, we have our mask brush that we can paint. So you have the option to adjust the brush size in this area. I can make that larger, I can make that smaller. We can clear the mask. And you have the option to save your image, you have the undo, redo, and to our left, we have the option to add our prompt. If we toggle that on and off, we have the option to add our negative prompt, things we don't want to have in the image, you want to avoid. We have the option to add our specific seed number if we want to, adjust the number of steps. We can adjust what kind of sampler we're going to be using. You can, of course, choose the model that you want to use, how strict you want your prompt to follow, or you want the app to follow your prompt, or if you want it to be a little bit more flexible. You have Inpainting options, as we had previously, where it only focuses on one specific area. And just like before, you can paint a region and press generate. And honestly, the results I get from this area aren't as accurate as I'd like, so I tend to use AI Canvas over Inpainting for now, but again, it may change with future versions that come out. You also have the miscellaneous option you can toggle on that has the V prediction if you're using Stable Diffusion 2.0 or models that are trained on that, or if it requires Clip Skip 2, you can toggle those on as well. This finished, but as you can see, it didn't add what I wanted it to add. So if I go to undo and redo, it modified that area, but didn't really follow my prompt, even though I had the guide set pretty strict and did mask the area I wanted to affect. It didn't actually provide the image I wanted it to. So this is a lot of trial and error, but you can paint certain areas and have it change. And if you're happy with it, you can save the image out. You can also open an image from your computer and bring an image in and modify it that way. But basically, this everything you can do here, essentially you can do in AI Canvas, but AI AI Canvas gives you a little bit more flexibility. So let's dive back over there and fiddle around a little bit more. Go back in AI Canvas. Let's say I want to generate an image I've made previously, but want to make some changes to it. So if you're like me and you've been using DiffusionBee for a while, you've probably made quite a lot of images, and I've had some in the past that I really liked, but I want to make some changes to. So let's see what we can do. I can select an image I like. For instance, let's just use this first one here. Under Actions, I can actually send that directly to AI Canvas. So let's do that. And immediately it brings it to AI Canvas. And from here, I can actually modify different parts of the image I want. So I can move this around a little bit here. You can make this larger or smaller. I'm gonna make my little bounding box around here. Let's say I want to paint like a little swing set in this little area. I'm gonna make sure I have this set to Generative Fill. I'm gonna have my brush, and just to demonstrate, you can paint areas if you wanted to. You can choose different colors. So maybe I wanted like a black border around this image. Honestly, if I had like my tablet hooked up to this, I can probably do this a lot easier. But if you wanted to, you can paint within DiffusionBee. Okay, I'll leave that how it is. But I'm going to use the Draw Inpainting mask, and I'm going to select a little area here. Let's add I feel like Bob Ross. Let's make a happy little swing set. So let's change our prompt around here a little bit. So I have my prompt now, and one thing I should also note is when you do import it into AI Canvas, it doesn't necessarily change the model that the image was made with. So you will have to kind of take note of that on your own. So which one did I use here? This is actually one I kind of got rid of because I have so many models now. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, all right. If you want to stay like consistent with the aesthetic, I would recommend using the same model that you made the image with, but whatever. I'm going to swap this around actually to one of my newer models, which is a kind of a sketch looking model here. Let's do this one. So I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and it should fill in just this area, but you know, this is trial and error here. But I do have this toggled on, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to press generate, and let's see what we have. So again, it did make the change to the section that I had selected. Now, had I had this box moved to the left, even with this masked, it would have still made the change to whatever was transparent. So just, again, keep that in mind. So not super happy with that. So this might take a few different tries for this to do what I want it to do. So again, I'm going to paint the area, boom. And ideally you want to keep the same model that you made the original image with again, because you want to have the same aesthetic. Okay, so now it actually gave me like a little swing set looking kind of thing here. So if I do undo and redo, undo, redo, undo, redo, you'll see what was created. So we can keep going. Like, you can honestly keep adding again to your heart's content here. But let's open an image and see what we can do here. So I can say add an image. So I went to my history and got another image, same or at least similar prompt, different model, kind of slightly different look. But you know, you can again go to and I saved it on my desktop, and then once I did that I went to add image, and then I can select it from my desktop, bring it into here. So with that done, now I can keep adding to it as though you're like Bob Ross or something, right? So I can have a new little bounding box, and maybe I want to add, I don't know, like a river or something on the bottom here. So let's just make this an enormous box. Okay, and I just want to kind of show you why ideally you don't want to have such a large area selected. So it did take a little longer than it would normally, but also you'll notice the quality is not the greatest when you have it very, very large. So I'm going to make this smaller. So let's undo this. Now we're just going to do smaller sections at a time. I would go through small section by small section and do it that way, just to kind of get better results. So let's save this out, and then I will re-import this and then use image to image. So I like using the image to image directly in the tab versus the AI canvas personally. I feel like you have more control this way, but you can drag and drop your image straight into it, or just, if I clear this out here, you can click on this button here and actually import it. I'm just gonna drag and drop. Keeping some of the negative prompt and the input prompt, I kind of changed a little bit. I'm gonna make this like a little forest village or something. And what I want to do is keep the same overall like structure. So for that, like in my previous video, we're going to be using the ControlNet option, and I'm going to use the depth map, and same thing, drag and drop, or you can choose to select it directly. I want it to generate a depth, I can never pronounce that word, depth map automatically. How close do I want it to follow? Let's say 0.5, and you can play around with some of these settings as you go. Again, there's no one, right answer for all these things. You'll play around with the steps and all this. And I just want to generate a few just to kind of see what this looks like. You can specify dimensions if you want to. I'll make this a little smaller. We don't need to have enormous for this. And it should use this image as our guide. And yeah, let's see what happens. So I'm gonna press generate, and it's gonna make 3 different images using the image that we made in AI Canvas. So it's using that information and creating a brand new image. So this is the first generation here. I had my settings pretty high, and again, it was looking at the original image and learning from it. So it made it look pretty, a one-to-one copy almost, because my settings were the same. I'm not really loving this little line here, so maybe I would go back in to the AI canvas and with a white color paint across this line so it's a little lighter, and that would change the overall shape as it looks at the image for the depth. And our second version, I adjusted the sliders so it's not as literal as the original image, but it's using it for like the general shape. So I like that this made it more like a pond, what I originally kind of wanted there. It kept the structure of this building pretty intact, and it didn't really keep that building all the way. It kept like some of the shape of it projecting out with like this tree line, which is kind of interesting. So I do like how this incorporated the shape of the house here. Like it has that like bowed out structure in this little house, and that line it actually made into its own little tree. I really like how it did that. So that's kind of the right direction I want to go for. And this is the third version where I played around with how much influence is happening here. If you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, check out the Discord, and if you haven't, also I have a whole bunch of models free for you guys to use. So if you go on civitai AI, check out my channel there, and there's I think almost 30 plus models that you can download and use. But yeah, so yeah, this last one's just about done here, and because I did increase the resolution and the step count, there's a lot more detail overall in this image versus the previous ones, even though it's the same model. Like these look pretty good, they're not bad. But you're starting to get a lot more detail, like in the structure of the building, the texture in the tree, even like leaves. And if I were to use different models that are like specific for like environments and stuff, you'll get different results. If you do work in AI Canvas, be sure to save that canvas out, because by default it does not save in your history. So even though we made a few different versions, by default, it will not save unless you save it. So within your AI canvas, make sure you're clicking this little save icon here, the hard floppy disk, to save it. Otherwise, your wonderful work will be lost. But anyway, talk to you all later. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. All right, y'all.